Hello, everyone, and welcome to Build Consulting's webinar for March 2019 titled A Good CRM Database Manager is Hard to Find, How to Recruit, Develop, and Retain the Best. Just a little bit about the agenda for today's presentation. I'm going to do a quick introduction of myself and Build Consulting. Then we're going to talk a little bit about what does a top CRM database manager look like. Briefly discuss challenges and then solutions in hiring, talent development, and retention. Then we'll talk a little bit about a free offering that's available from Build Consulting before we jump right into questions and answers. There should be about 15 minutes for Q&A remaining at the end of the conversation. Some of you submitted questions in advance, and I tried to weave those into the presentation as much as possible. But feel free to use the chat feature or the questions feature in GoToWebinar to submit your questions, and I'll be happy to answer them at the end. You can do that either during the presentation or after the presentation in the Q&A period. Just a few quick housekeeping notes. Again, ask questions via chat. Try to avoid multitasking so you don't miss the best part of the presentation. And as always, webinar recording and slides will be shared via email after the webinar. And we're now making most of these webinars available in MP3 format as well, so you can listen to them on your commute. Just a quick minute about Build Consulting. We work exclusively with nonprofit organizations to help them make strategic technology decisions that support their mission. And we try to do that with a collaborative approach so that we're empowering our clients to make informed decisions in their own best interests. We provide three main services. We provide outsourced part-time or interim CIO services, projects that range from information strategy roadmaps or tech strategy roadmaps to system selections and implementation guidance. And with Build Teams, we provide outsourced data managers with deep development, operations, and technical expertise in the nonprofit CRM space. A little bit about myself. My name is Peter Mirus. I'm a partner with Build Consulting, and I'll be your presenter today. A little bit about me by the numbers. I have 20 years of experience serving nonprofit organizations, worked directly with over 100 different clients in both the nonprofit, government, and other areas of the social sector space, as well as for-profit organizations. And my three primary areas of expertise that I'm bringing to bear to today's conversation are as an executive and director in the areas of marketing, constituent relationship management for a variety of different purposes, including donor management and information strategy in general. So now we're just going to kick straight into the topic of today's webinar, which is one of the largest challenges facing nonprofits is hiring, developing, and retaining excellent CRM database managers. This is a challenge that we encounter in many nonprofits, if not most of the nonprofits that we go to. At one point or another, they face a serious challenge in this area. And there's a few reasons why this is a problem. It's a source of significant inefficiencies in nonprofit organizations when you don't have good CRM data management, and that can impact everything from fundraising to program outcome reporting and everything in between. And when you lose a good data manager, it often causes a great deal of operational disruption because the amount of institutional knowledge that that person departs with when they leave the organization can be difficult to replace. And in addition to that, you have to go through the process of finding someone new to replace that person, bringing them up to speed, which can sometimes take a prolonged period of time, etc. So in addition to that, just when you don't have a good CRM database manager or don't have a good CRM database manager role, it definitely leads to a lessened impact or diminished outcomes for the organization. CRM is such a large concept as a platform. It can be focused specifically on donor or constituent relationship management, but it can also cover a wide variety of other bases, as I mentioned earlier, program management, case management, variety of different other things. So if you're not doing your CRM database management well, it definitely has the impact to lessen the ability of your mission to execute. So what is a database manager in the broad sense? Specific to CRMs, but what is that person? And basically, it's what you see on screen here. Someone with the business and technical skills to navigate the complexities of the org and the database systems, in this case, CRM database systems and their connected pieces. And this is all in support of the organization's activities. So if you're thinking about the database manager role in regards to a departmental role or a system-specific role, in this case CRM, this is sort of the fundamental concept that you want to start with, and you build out your ideas from that. Other titles that are given to the CRM data manager role in the market, or database manager role, are data manager, database administrator, information systems manager, information manager, etc. But just so you're aware, for the purposes of today's conversation, we're going to be thinking about all of these terms as being fairly synonymous. And what does your organization want, or what should it want for the CRM database manager role? Ultimately, it's about helping your organization to bring its data closer to providing an accurate and accessible representation of activities and outcomes. You want to know that your data is really helping to serve the purposes for which your organization intends it. And the database manager is key to making sure that there's reliable data that helps to contribute to the mission of your org. And that drills down into some primary focus areas for the role. There's a lot of policy and practice development that goes into maintaining the database manager role at a high level. The person needs to have great project task management abilities. There's a lot of opportunities and requirements for process documentation and improvement in how you handle CRM data management. There's a lot of responsibilities in regards to data quality and accessibility, with accessibility here meaning the ability to have access to the kind of data when you need it to make informed decisions. And also what falls under the umbrella of the CRM database administrator role or manager role is information systems implementations and integrations. So this could be, for example, integrating your marketing automation platform with your core CRM platform. And this is a part of the role that often is not mentioned when the database administrator or manager is hired, but often becomes a part of their requirements later on as the organization grows and develops and considers changing its technology in various ways. So what are some of the hiring challenges specifically that we see for CRM data managers in the nonprofit space? I think the first is that there's not enough talent to go around. People, even in sometimes doing very good solicitations for candidates for the role, will find that they're not getting a good number of candidates to meet their requirements, and that's a critical challenge. It's been particularly a challenge as the economy has been good or fairly good recently. Generally speaking, the more people are entrenched in their employment positions and their stability in that regard, there's less mobility within the market and less talent available. Undervaluing the role. I think that nonprofits expect the database manager to perform at a high level, and they don't often mirror that expectation with the right compensation, and we're going to talk about that specifically in a little bit here. And then oftentimes we see poor hiring processes. Nonprofits often don't know how to express what the job requires or look for candidates in the right places, so therefore they often end up picking the best from among a group of less qualified individuals. We're going to get on to solutions for these challenges later, but first we're going to talk a little bit about retention challenges and talent development challenges. So again, for retention, there's not enough talent to go around, and you should assume that people are going to be trying to poach your talent if you have a really good database manager, particularly if you're not supporting that individual in the right way with their role inside your organization, and that contributes to undervaluing the role as well. But oftentimes there's a poor understanding of data management inside the organization that can contribute to lack of retention. So data management is often the least understood part of the business, and too often the complexity of the role is overlooked. So no, data just doesn't magically maintain itself, and this can lead to the constant overtasking of database managers, resulting in burnout. There's a very high burnout rate in this position, and I don't necessarily mean burnout in the sense of an individual becoming overwhelmed and leaving their organization. Sometimes they can stay within their organization and be burnt out, and that creates additional challenges. And then finally, on this retention challenges point, just lack of support from the organization. Database managers are held responsible for data quality, but they typically do not have the authority to enforce good data practices by others within the organization. So this can lead to database managers being blamed for data integrity problems over which they have no control. And I would say this is a characteristic challenge that we face with our nonprofit clients, is this this lack of understanding that contributes to lack of support from the organization. There's a lot of data problems that occur often upstream of the CRM data manager's role, from different people in different areas of the organization that are performing data management or data entry, and that crud, for lack of a better expression, tends to roll downhill to where the database manager is responsible for reporting and manipulating data in a way that helps contribute to outcomes. So you have a garbage in, garbage out problem that's not always remediatable at the database manager level, but for which database managers are often held accountable. Now let's talk a little bit about talent development challenges. So again, there's a lack of definition for the proper function of the role within the organization. And when the role isn't properly understood, it's difficult for executives and managers to set talent development goals and allocate budget for appropriate professional development, because they don't know what they're targeting for, they don't know the space. And sometimes if you are a database administrator that's not sort of professional goal or learning oriented in a way that's super outgoing, maybe you're a little bit more of an introvert, you're not coming up with those options by yourself and presenting them to your management or executives for review and approval. Or sometimes you run up against an executive who you're presenting an idea for your professional development as an imperative or a very high value, but you're not able to get allocated a budget. So that can be a challenge as well. And then I would say that the next major development challenge is insufficient knowledge of the tools in use by the organization. And that sort of goes in hand with the prior point, which is that execs and managers at various levels don't always know the CRM tools in use or have a sufficient understanding of their complexity and the large body of knowledge that needs to be maintained in order to use them effectively. And professional development in terms of ongoing education is critical to maintaining the database manager role over a period of time. And both of those challenges segue well into the third point that I'd like to make, which is lack of exchange of ideas with communities of support or communities of practice. So CRM tech and best practices related change rapidly. And if time and budgetary commitments on a part of the individual and on a part of the organization for which they work aren't made if the commitments aren't made to a frequent exchange of ideas with vendors and other CRM data management practitioners within the nonprofit space, knowledge can quickly become stale and start creating liabilities in different areas for the organization. So I've painted this as being a level of responsibility primarily for executives and managers, often because they're the gatekeepers of time and budget allocation for professional development. But it really is the responsibility of the practitioner as well to know what they need to nurture themselves in how they serve the organization in that role, and then present those and the value cases for them to their managers. So we went through a number of challenges fairly quickly for both the areas of hiring, retention, and talent development challenges. And now what I want to spend the majority of this center part of the presentation on is talking about what nonprofit organizations can do to address these challenges with solutions. And the first thing I'd like to talk about is how to prepare for success in data management. How do you till the soil of your nonprofit organization to make sure that there is opportunity for initial and over time continued success in the data management role for CRM specifically, and then learn how to approach the hiring process, and then talk about planning for talent development and retention. And again, the first thing we're going to talk about is how to prepare for success in CRM data management. And the thing that Build Consulting likes to really emphasize for any technology or data initiative is that it is more than just about the data, it is more than just about the tech. So let's talk about that. There's a discipline in the information strategy space called information management. You see across the top of the screen here, these are the 5 keys to information management. And these are the 5 areas that Build Consulting would ask any nonprofit organization to consider, whether we were doing a technology roadmap assessment and roadmap engagement, or whether we were providing CIO services, or even in the case of doing CRM specific consulting services. We're going to be taking a look at any situation or any need within the lens of these 5 areas. And the first area to focus on is really leadership. I think everything within the organization starts with leadership. Leadership sets the policy and cultural foundation for success, provides the clear vision and strategy, and makes the key investment decisions. So whenever you're thinking about facility of use with CRM or success within the CRM data manager role, it really is going to start with leadership every single time. And so many times when we have webinars talking about anything having to do with information systems, but with CRM specifically, there are a variety of questions that ultimately come back to leadership. And so that is at the good leadership is at the root of everything. Second thing we ask people to consider is operations. And we generally look at it from the standpoint of people, project management, and communications. Within all of the areas of organizational operations that touch CRM data management, do you have the right people in place? Is there a framework for project management that's mutually understood? And are there clear communications from the CRM data manager role out to the rest of the organization in regards to how the role functions, how it benefits the organization on a daily basis from a pure day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month, year-to-year operational support standpoint? And the third thing that we like to take a look at is processes. What are the business processes that the organization is executing? I mean, this is key to understanding everything downstream. And for the organization that doesn't really understand its critical CRM supported processes, doesn't have them clearly defined and consistently executed, it really hamstrings the ability of the CRM data manager that's in place or coming into the role in the future to really have a successful impact and deliver to the expectations of the organization. And then as we move more towards the right here, we start getting into the data and technology questions. We're talking about collecting, organizing, maintaining, and using data. And then finally, you get to technology. Technology that is aligned to the 4 prior keys. And we talk about this generally speaking in terms of grouping information management into 2 primary areas. In the first area is in blue here, and that is the leadership, operations, and processes components. And that is more focused towards organizational strategy and business plan and development of mission-oriented goals, objectives, and programs. So, and then to the right, sort of data and technology as highly interconnected concepts. And the reason we emphasize this is that everything at the data and technology level is really dependent on everything that happens in leadership, operations, and processes. So if you get everything that's more organizationally focused to the left, right, it makes data and technology that much easier. So even though the domain of the CRM data manager's area of focus for the role might be highly focused on data and technology, it really is necessary for them to traverse issues that have to deal with or that are impactful on them from these three other areas. And I think that's one of the things that's sort of undervalued by the organization. So with that framework in mind, let's talk about specific solutions. And the first thing I'd like to talk about is approaching the hiring process. So typical organizations want to know three things when they're looking for a CRM database manager. The first is, can you fix my problem? There's always some problem that needs to be addressed. It might just be we need somebody to keep the trains running because we just lost our previous CRM data manager. It might be some other challenge relating to cleaning up data or making it more reportable. But that's the first thing. I've got a problem. What are you going to do to help me fix it? The second thing is, will you make my life easier by fixing that problem? What are you going to do for me that gets this monkey off of my back? And how does that contribute to making my life easier? And do I enjoy you as a person? So these are three typical things that, in general, people that are thinking about buying products or services are looking for. And it's no different when you're talking about recruiting an employee or a subcontractor. You want to know each of these three things. And the reason why I say that typical organizations look for these three things is not because excellent organizations are necessarily looking for anything different, but with the typical organization that's recruiting a CRM database manager, the details inside of each of these areas tend to be muddy. There isn't enough clarity around what is expected of the role within the organizational dynamics that pertain to information management. So let's take a look at what excellent organizations look for and how they start to elaborate and develop specificity within each of those three areas. So first, can you fix my problem? And in order to really answer that question and to articulate what the problem is and then get an answer to it, the candidate needs to have an understanding and familiarity with the specific kinds of challenges that your organization is dealing with and that are supported by CRM. Whether that's donor relationship management or specific areas of donor relationship management, such as major gifts, whether it's grants management, whether it's program management, any of those things. So what are the specific challenges that we're dealing with as an organization? And second to that is sort of technical knowledge and aptitude on the part of the candidate. We're going to get into that a little bit more in future slides. And definitely problem-solving abilities, perhaps more important than specific system technical knowledge and aptitude. Do you understand the work in which we are engaged, and do you have good problem-solving abilities? And then under the heading of will you make my life easier, yes, we want somebody that can solve the initial challenges, but we want somebody in this kind of role that's outcomes oriented, that's not firefighting oriented. Another way to express this might be somebody that is strategic, has enough strategic mindset so that they're not constantly just focused on knocking off granular tactical tasks. Somebody that's good at project management is really important for the CRM data manager role because that individual is going to be charged with managing their time and perhaps the time of others and organizing and prioritizing requests as they come in from a variety of different sources, particularly for the person in the CRM data manager role in a medium to large size organization, there are constant requests of a variety of different natures coming in. Some of them are individually defined as projects, others are just more quick support requests. So there's a lot of things that need to be organized, and good project management is really indispensable for handling all of that. And you need somebody in the CRM data manager role that's capable of clearly and consistently communicating the mission of the role, what it does for the organization, how those projects are prioritized and why, where the authority for that prioritization comes from, the status of them. These are all things that fall under the category of will you make my life easier, that good or excellent organizations clearly have in mind and articulate when they're recruiting for the CRM database manager position. And under the heading of do I enjoy you as a person, you need somebody that has good intellectual capabilities, but also somebody that has good emotional capabilities. There is a lot of diplomacy and understanding of stresses on other parts of the organization, responsibilities and stresses, that comes along with being an effective CRM database manager. And so that also contributes to the individual's ability to be a team player, to be able to relate to others, to be able to understand their needs and concerns, and also somebody that has the ability to create and maintain appropriate boundaries for the role and the expectations on their time, and can be calm in the midst of storms. Like I said, there's a lot of challenges, a lot of complexity associated with this role, and there are a lot of requests that come in from a variety of different sources. So the ability to maintain healthy expectations from the organization in regards to the role is in part up to the data manager themselves to really establish good boundaries and to remain calm when deadlines are approaching, when people are struggling to get data in or out of the system with the support of the data manager role. So there's a lot of things that sort of fit into each of these three categories, and we could talk about what excellent organizations look for all day long, but these are some of the things that I would recommend people that are recruiting for a CRM data manager look for that might be a little other than what they would typically put in their job description or solicitation. So again, when you're recruiting, take care to define the position in specific terms, communicate the role's level of empowerment, and post the position in nonprofit specific venues. So you want to define the position so specifically as to be attractive to a top candidate. When top candidates are looking to move within the space or evaluating potential opportunities, if the role is defined in a mushy sort of way, that'll be a red flag to them, because they want to know that there will be good mutual expectations about what will be entailed in that role and how its success will be measured. And if they can avoid it, great experienced CRM data managers don't want to step into an unempowered role. They want to know where they sit in the chain of command. They want to make sure that basically they're not going to be held responsible for other people's data entry or data management challenges within the organization. So the data manager role within any system or any focal point in the area needs to be empowered appropriately, let's just say. And then in terms of posting the position in nonprofit specific venues, make sure you exercise idealist community message boards. If you can't find someone out there in one of those locations, your odds of getting a good person decrease extremely rapidly. If you're relying on LinkedIn primarily, or even Monster.com, specifically, the mainstream job boards, once you get past this community-specific areas, like I said, you're definitely running out of time, and you also don't want to choose the best of several poor options. So you may want to make sure that you get some good candidates by giving appropriate time and attention to the hiring process. And we would talk a little bit about the cost of a bad hire momentarily, but you really don't want to be in a position again where you feel compelled to make a decision, but you're not really satisfied with the options that are in front of you. So make sure to invest the proper time in the recruiting process. It's not something that you're going to be able to do overnight. It might take time. And now there's always a question about whether or not you should outsource the role. And this is particularly true for small to mid-sized organizations that might not need a full-time database manager, or might understand that the role is more effectively met by one or two individuals, or that the breadth of perspective that they require to bring to bear on their particular situation is greater than what one individual's experience could provide. So you might be able to have a successful sort of internal CRM database management practice with a junior data manager or departmental staff taking care of routine data entry, simple imports, exports, and reports, and then sort of outsource the senior management responsibilities, which could include strategy, process documentation and improvement, integrations management, and complex data import, export, and reporting and analysis. So if your organization doesn't otherwise have a mechanism for bringing the information management role inside of the organization, then you might consider outsourcing to a firm with multiple successful nonprofit clients that can help bring in the perspective and capabilities that you're looking for. So again, best for small to mid-sized organizations. Breadth of experience from a team serving multiple nonprofits is something that you should look for. There could be an opportunity to get some packaged in, I'd say, CIO level expertise, so that when you need somebody that's really going to talk to you about how CRM and data management supports the organization's strategy and mission, and you need to have conversations at that level. There could be some additional resources that could be made available by your outsourced shop. And it allows you to stay focused on constituents and outcomes. So if you're constantly having turmoil in the CRM data management role internally, or you have trouble keeping it consistently staffed, or you have subcontractors that come and go and each one manages the data a little bit differently, you might want to outsource the role to a shop and at an affordable cost, and just get it off your plate and get it taken care of so that you can focus on your key mission objectives. And specifically, Build Consulting provides customizable services that would allow you to outsource. So if you haven't considered outsourcing to a team, or getting some sort of supplemental support from a team that is not your full-time data manager, or you want to complement your full-time data manager with some other skill sets that you need, that might be a good way to go about doing it. And there are other companies in the market that provide those services as well. So now I want to talk about planning for talent development and retention as two very closely interrelated topics. And the first thing that I want to talk about is learning. So a fair number of people have at least some technical chops in the CRM in question, whatever CRM you're using, whether it be Neon or the Razor's Edge or BBCRM or Salesforce in some version, or even Dynamics, and or they might have some fundraising or donor management experience. But very few people are out there with the other necessary skill sets, some of which we alluded to earlier. So does that individual that you need have the project management capabilities you require? Do they understand the idea of customer service? As a CRM data management is often an information resource to the rest of the organization. Do they understand time management and change management, particularly if this individual is managing a team of persons instead of just themselves? So these are the kind of learning opportunities that aren't necessarily specific to, again, the CRM in question and or the fundraising or donor basic management experience, but the soft things. And it's easier to train on these things, I would say, and find good training for them that are not specific to the nonprofit sector than it is to find somebody and train them up on fundraising or donor management, let alone the specific CRM. And another reason why I emphasize these is that first is that they're often overlooked by nonprofit organizations when they're thinking about professional development for a CRM data manager. Another area is process mapping and design, and this sort of fits into the same category as what I just discussed. It's often required of the role, even if it's not clearly articulated. It's something that a lot of individuals say, maybe I'm a Salesforce database administrator and I know a good amount about that system and I know a good amount about fundraising, but I have no sort of business background in process mapping and design. That could be extremely helpful for somebody in that role. So that's another critical area of learning. Obviously, data management knowledge and system-specific knowledge are very important from a learning standpoint for somebody in this role. And one of the questions that I get often in regards to data and system-specific knowledge is, do certifications matter? So should you be getting your Razor's Edge administrator certification or your Salesforce certification? And I think the answer for a current employer, viewing it from the employer side, is only if the path to certification is a good learning path for the employee within the context of your organization's needs. So there are some certifications out there that really don't convey a lot of knowledge or don't have a lot of requirements associated with them. They're just a very small way of checking the box that you've exhibited the minimum amount of interest in the platform to get a cert. But there are others that are extremely substantive and really make sure that the individual knows the ins and outs of the platform or even certain learning tracks associated with the platform. So looking at Salesforce from a donor management specific standpoint, for example. But again, you have to evaluate the certifications closely to make sure that they actually have some meaning. So that's why I say that, is it a good learning path or not? That's the key consideration. For an employee or a CRM data manager that's looking to be competitive in the market, yes, certifications are important, but mostly because of candidate screening and knockout questions. So the knowledge is far more important than the certifications themselves in terms of your ability to do the job once you're in the role. Sometimes certifications can be the best way to achieve that knowledge, sometimes it's not. But there are organizations that will do candidate screening and say, well, if this person doesn't have a Razor's Edge certification, we're not even going to take a look at them, much in the same way that having a master's degree might be a requirement for certain other roles inside the organization. And then a critical part of learning is community engagement. And what I mean by that is both in the physical world, attending conferences, and also in the virtual world, attending webinars, exercising, your ability to learn through discussion forums, et cetera, is very important. And when talking about nonprofit CRM data managers specifically, I think there are two organizations that provide venues for community engagement where there's a high value. One is an option that a lot of people are familiar with, which is the Nonprofit Technology Network, which hosts the annual Nonprofit Technology Conference, that tends to have a lot of learning tracks that are focused on data management that is CRM specific and marketing automation specific. So they're very heavy in those two areas. And the vendors that tend to exhibit and present at those conferences are often very focused in the CRM and marketing automation platform spaces as well. The community that less people are familiar with is called Data Analysts for Social Good. They host the Good Tech Fest annually. This year it's in May in Chicago. And that is another organization, particularly for sort of mid to advanced level CRM data management practitioners. And the membership fee for both is very affordable. Both Nonprofit Technology Network and Data Analysts for Social Good is very affordable relative to the value and have a lot of resources and learning opportunities to offer. And then there are technology platform or vendor specific conferences like Dreamforce for Salesforce, which has some nonprofit specific tracks. The quality of those vary from year to year, and bbcon for Blackbaud. So there's a lot of opportunities for community engagement, and managers and execs need to take a good look at those on behalf of the CRM database managers on their team, and really also be responsive to suggestions that they get, and don't be so quick to throw that out as a luxury expense when it comes to budgeting. Now let's talk a little bit about the 800-pound gorilla in the room when it comes to retaining CRM database managers, and that's compensation. And it's a difficult subject to talk about, and I don't get into the specifics of what an individual should be compensated for at a particular organization with a particular set of responsibilities in these webinars, although I will do that within client consultations. But I would just say there are a couple of things to keep in mind when you're deciding how much to compensate for the role. The first is expect to pay more than the average. So if you're doing your salary compensation research and you're looking to see what the averages are, the average is what mediocre makes. And since you need more than mediocre, you should expect to pay more than the average. So in terms of total compensation, so salary and benefits put together, as well as other peripheral benefits associated with the role, such as working environment, you should expect to pay at least a 20% premium over the market average for the role. And the market average might be further adjusted based on your region within the country. So if you're taking a national average for the role, you need to apply the cost of standard cost of living increase or decrease depending on what your region's expectations relative to the national averages are in those areas, and then add a 20% premium on top of that. Don't hire someone at a lower level and expect them to grow into the role unless you're prepared to be responsible for training them and informing their maturation process. Sorry, I jumped ahead a little bit by accident. So consider the cost of a bad hire here, or at least the turnover. So you definitely don't want to hire the wrong person for the position, and this speaks to my earlier point about investing in the hiring. Hire somebody that you want to retain. Make sure you do that. Because the cost of a bad hire, when you take everything into consideration, could be as much as 2 to 3 times the CRM data manager's annual total compensation. That's taking into consideration just the cost of paying to that individual, perhaps paying severance, onboarding the new individual, and everything that goes into that process, not to mention the hours and time that's invested in recruiting. That doesn't even take into consideration necessarily the operational impact on the organization, and the cost of that, if you're really at sea for a while in the CRM database manager role, can increase the costs exponentially, even if they're not the kind of costs that would be immediately apparent on the departmental budget sheet. So those are the two major points under compensation. And then other keys to retention, and I started to get into this just a minute ago. Unless you're prepared, don't hire somebody with lower professional maturity than what the role requires. Unless you're prepared to be responsible for training them and informing their maturation process, don't expect them to just grow into the role without having to take some responsibility for that. So just make sure that you're equipped and have the infrastructure necessary to bring somebody along. And a lot of organizations don't understand the role well enough to do that, or don't have the time, or overestimate the time that they have available to commit to that person's professional development. So I would say that, again, unless you're prepared, don't hire somebody with lower professional maturity than what the role requires. And when I say maturity, I don't mean their ethical abilities or their ability to behave like an adult in a professional environment, or just their progress of their maturation within their role and their skill set, although both could be true. And from a CRM data management standpoint, professional development is necessary for all staff, not just the CRM database manager. Ultimately, data management is a team effort, And if you require your CRM database manager to develop and maintain a level of professional competency that's not shared by other staff around them that have the ability to impact their success, don't expect the CRM database manager to stick around. I often say that database management, particularly CRM database management, is one of the most poorly understood roles within any nonprofit organization, and yet has the highest expectations associated with it. And as a result, that individual, from their professional development standpoint and from their job satisfaction standpoint, is not going to be satisfied if you don't have the same commitment to advancing the professional development of other staff that are contributing to the process. And indeed, if you take a look at some of the statistics as to why technology initiatives fail internally, including in especially CRM projects, it's because the professional development of staff that are engaged in using that system as a whole is not advanced. The professional development is just consolidated into these direct CRM database manager roles, and that ultimately ends up being a mistake. And this is, again, along with the compensation issue, something that is often not talked about except within the specific of quiet HR conversations. But you're looking for somebody that has a lot of intellectual purity and professional competency. And persons that fit into those categories specifically, as well as all employees, desire to be respected and challenged. And if they don't feel both respected and challenged in such a high demand, sort of feet to the fire, often kind of a role, high expectations, lots of requests coming from multiple different directions, they will often either move on or start to implode in place, depending on their personality type. So somebody that's more social and sort of risk tolerant is going to start going out and looking for other options. There's a lot of lateral movement in the CRM data manager role from organization to organization, either due to lack of being respected and supporting or being challenged sufficiently in their role and lack of ability to learn new things. There are others that are more introverted and less social and less risk tolerant that have the tendency to just sort of gradually get more and more depressed and anxious about their role in place, and both are challenges and problems that you don't want to address too long after they become a problem. So key to retention, again, this just harkens back to the fact that everything starts with leadership and operational capacity. You want to make sure that across your entire organization you have people that feel respected and challenged in their roles, but specifically with top performers in the CRM database management arena. So we've talked a lot about challenges and solutions, and I realize that we're up against the Q&A period here. So I just want to say as a closing, before we get into the Q&A, Build Consulting has a new offering that it's putting forward to help clients with the Razor's Edge take their organization's fundraising to the next level. And we know, as we've just discussed, how important good data management is to engaging with constituents. And nonprofits that integrate Razor's Edge into their fundraising strategy are able to find new prospective donors and delight their constituents and raise even more money. So what we do as part of this assessment is benchmark and assess a particular nonprofit's instance of the Razor's Edge across 4 or 5 core areas that are proven to help power your work. And we have decades of experience with the Razor's Edge across our team and fundraising specifically, and we'll identify ways that you can improve your operations, processes, and data to help accelerate where you want your organization to go. And all you need to do to take advantage of this free offer is shoot us an email. You can go to buildconsulting.com/contact and let us know you'd like to schedule a free Razor's Edge benchmarking assessment. And we'll review your system and share our insights with you in approachable language so that you can get the most from your investment in the Razor's Edge and have recommendations that you can take to the rest of your organization so that you know where to focus as an organization in the future. And with that, if there are any questions, we'll take some questions from the group. There's only about 12 of us on right now. So I'll pause and offer to see if anybody has any questions, and if I can do it without putting it up on screen, I'll probably not. And while I'm waiting for that, I think one of the questions that I often get in regards to CRM database administrator roles is, is it important that the person knows, when they're coming in, knows the specific system that I have? I think that is very much a question that is yes and no. I would say that in general, knowing the way that CRM systems work and knowing how fundraising operations work are more important than knowledge in the specific system. So I would value those things as well as some of the other criteria that I mentioned earlier over system-specific knowledge. And if somebody has in-depth experience in the Razor's Edge and you're a Salesforce shop and they otherwise have great qualifications, I would suggest giving them a shot and learning how they can apply that to your Salesforce situation. I often tell CRM database managers not to worry about information that they can get easily, and technical information is within that information set if you have the ability and the curiosity to go get it. So one of our participants asked, what do you suggest when recruiting for a database that is not a typical CRM fundraising database? If you could provide more specifics, that would be great. So but I'll just mention a couple of cases that I've seen in the past. So I've seen people that are very sort of human services delivery focused, that have client and case management systems that is their primary orientation. So that could be a case management system that's based on Salesforce, which is traditionally considered to be a CRM platform but has strong case management functions. Or even they have their primary constituent database in a case management system like Caseworthy and are wanting to do a little bit of fundraising from those individuals. So it's always a good question. How you're going to handle that. It's a complicated one, but again, you want to try to hire somebody that has expertise in the areas of the business challenges that you're trying to address and good technical aptitude and aptitude in other systems, and then allow them to transfer that knowledge to your specific system and your specific areas of need. I think that's the best answer I can give right now, but if you want to if whomever asked that question wanted to follow up with greater specifics via email, I'll be happy to dialogue back and forth on that a little bit. Hope that answered the question. Another question that we often see about CRM database administrators is who they should report to inside of the organization. Should they be reporting to the IT functions? Should they be reporting to the department, the development department, or sometimes there are multiple departments that are leveraging the CRM for basic purposes, whether it be program management or donor relationship management. And so nobody really owns the function. I think that's a question that is best addressed on a per organization basis, but generally we say that the organization the part of the organizations that's responsible for managing the data should co-own that data and the technology that supports it with the IT or IS function inside of the organization, because both have a stake and set of responsibilities. And the important aspect that creates from a internal dynamic standpoint is that it avoids situations in which IT or IS and development, as an example, are pointing the finger at each other when there are technology or data-related challenges. And in those kinds of situations, whomever is the central or one of the CRM database managers can be caught in the crossfire. So those are the kinds of situations that you want to avoid. And in situations where there are lots of different internal stakeholders from different departments using the system, it's really important to have structures like data governance committees that specifically identify who is responsible for maintaining what data inside of the system in what ways. And if the CRM data management role is supporting multiple teams across different departments, to make sure that their role in providing that support is clearly identified and that the internal reporting requirements are clearly identified as well. So there are no more questions coming in. So thank you so much for attending today's webinar. We will not be having another webinar for Build Consulting until May, and we'll be sending out emails about that next month. I will be speaking at the aforementioned Data Analysts for Social Good Conference Good Tech Fest in May on the subjects of how to build an information strategy for your organization and how data quality defines an organization. Those are two separate presentations that I'll be doing at Good Tech Fest in May. So I hope to see you there. I don't think it's too late to register for that conference if you didn't already have it on your radar screen. And those are also presentations that will be made available as webinars through Community IT, through Build Consulting and our partner Community IT that we engage with on a lot of these webinars probably in the fall. So with that, we're going to adjourn. Again, thank you everybody so much for attending, and best wishes for the rest of your day.